Cyberpunk 2077 is a game that's been on my radar for a couple of years now. Despite generally favorable reviews at launch, it has also gained much public attention from its many technical problems, bugs, and overall performance issues experienced at launch. With the release of the anime adaptation Edgerunners on Netflix, and the accompanying patch release of the same name for the game, not to mention DLC on the horizon, I figured now would be the time to finally see what Night City has to offer.
Good morning, Night City, a day in the life. I was on my own, catching a ride with the lady who held hands down.
The first thing that struck me about Cyberpunk were its visuals. Footage you see here was captured on the Xbox Series X in performance mode. The game looks great, and each of the environments you'll be spending time in Night City places the graphics on display in different ways. The world of Cyberpunk is spread out across 7 districts, each with their own sub-districts and unique architecture, layout, and background history for how they formed. The District of Watson is described as an area originally meant to be the beating heart of Night City, but now is one of its poorest districts. The district known as City Center features dazzling neon signs and breathtaking architecture which serve to flaunt its economic power. The district of Westbrook is where the luminaries and most richest of Night City live, whether in the sub-district of Charter Hill or up in the hills in North Oak. Haywood is a district of 2 worlds, with modern skyscrapers and parks on its north side, and dangerous slums on its south. Santo Domingo is one of Night City's oldest districts, and has become its industrial hub for real estate and business. The district of Pacifica is a failed luxury architectural project now mostly uninhabited and abandoned except for a local gang. And lastly, the Badlands is an area consisting of multiple zones bordering Night City. This is essentially the Wild West, dangerous and populated by a gang of exiled nomads. As I spent more time in each district throughout the game, I felt them drawing me into their atmosphere, to the point where I felt immersed in the game. I knew the streets, back alleys, and Night City slang. When en route to my next objective, oftentimes I would run on foot to the destination, even if it was a distance away, just so I could experience the city as up close as possible. The fashion style of NPCs, places of business, foot and vehicle traffic, even without knowing the background of each district, observing details such as these felt like each district's nonverbal method of communicating their personality to me as the player. The game's director has been quoted as saying that an environment filled with things that look futuristic is not cyberpunk, but simply science fiction. Throughout my playthrough, I never got the impression that the world design was attempting to aim at a purely futuristic city, but rather that those aspects were selectively applied to the environment. The game does a great job mixing familiar elements with futuristic ones, leading to the atmosphere of a city that feels more reasonably believable than foreign. At street level, I even appreciated all the attention to detail that went into constructing each city block. I'm aware that in open world games, such details may go overlooked by gamers more interested in clearing their next objective, but knowing that there were teams of artists who worked on the design and placement of all these assets really serves as a reminder of the effort required to produce games at this level of production value. Sure, you'll notice some ads and other assets that get repetitive over the course of the game, but it's refreshing to come across sites you're sure you haven't quite seen before. If you're jumping into Cyberpunk on a current gen console or PC, expect to be in for a visual treat. Now, let's talk about the story. In Cyberpunk, you play as a mercenary known as V. Your character's gender and appearance are up to you to decide, as is your life path, which determines V's background, introductory quest line, dialogue options throughout the game, and a specific side quest unique to your life path. The game begins with V doing mercenary jobs with longtime friend Jackie Wells, attempting to build up their names and credibility in the streets of Night City. Eventually, they are contacted by a prominent fixer known as Dex, a middleman between clients and mercenaries considered one of the best in the business. Dex hires the team to break into an elite corporate hotel to steal a biochip referred to as the Relic from the heir to the Arasaka Empire, a global megacorporation with a dark reputation for shady dealings and the use of force to cover their tracks. Unfortunately, V ends up getting entangled with addressing the biochip, learning more about its history and true purpose. Having recently finished the game, an aspect that I can say definitely held my attention was the storytelling. One method in which the game accomplishes this is by using main jobs tied to the central narrative. I found these to progress the story along beat by beat at an enjoyable pace, using multiple styles of missions, such as those involving adventure, intrigue, action, surprise, especially in the early game when you're most unfamiliar with Night City. These missions do a great job of unveiling the several characters you'll be spending a lot of time with, and the world you'll be spending a lot of time in. The second avenue the game performs its storytelling in is through side jobs. These are essentially side missions with their own mini-narratives and objectives considered separate from the main jobs, and they help to flesh out the broader cyberpunk lore and day-to-day life of Night City's residents. Not every side job lands, mind you. Some involve simply speaking to a character, eliminating a threat, such as in the case of a cyber psycho sighting, or some other straightforward task. However, overall, I was pleased with what the game had to offer. Main and side jobs alike take you all around Night City, which is another aspect I appreciated. Sometimes in large open world games, there are areas that go unexplored by the player, even by the game's completion. However, in Cyberpunk, their implementation makes it so that players who may not have wandered off into certain areas on their own accord will be guided to do so via narrative events, resulting in further discovery of the game's environments. Additionally, there are side jobs that exist only for the story arcs for notable characters you'll meet, which also help to bolster the main narrative, at times with available romance options depending on your choices. Personally speaking, by the game's end, I felt I had went on a journey with these characters, as I had experienced so many personal moments with each of them. To name a few, you have the rebellious Panam Palmer, the ambitious Evelyn Parker, brain dance wizard Judy Alvarez, honorable and loyal Goro Takamura, and the charming jerk Johnny Silverhand. Overall, I was pleased with the story of Cyberpunk, and if any of that sounded intriguing to you, I think you will too. Now, let's talk about the gameplay. When it comes to weapons, they can be classified into three categories: ranged guns, melee weapons, and cyberware. Range guns will bring you that familiar first-person shooter feel whenever you enter combat, and it's quite satisfying blasting an enemy close range and watching their limbs fly about. I will say, however, that the default settings for aiming and sensitivity feel rather strange than in your standard FPS, so you'll probably want to adjust these if you experience the same. Combat with melee weapons I thought was just okay. Aside from throwing weapons, there's something about the rhythm of hacking away at an enemy and the lack of feeling of collision that felt unsatisfying to me. Cyberware weapons can be installed on your character via Ripper docks located around Night City, and these augment and enhance your base character. For example, allowing you to have modified arms or an optical camo layer under your skin, allowing you to temporarily turn near invisible. There are also quick hacks which can be installed on your cyber deck, and these allow you to take covert or offensive actions against enemies, such as revealing their locations through obstacles, or infecting an enemy with a poison that continues to spread throughout their ranks. Clothing can also be equipped on your character, boosting your defense through additional armor. Fortunately, the game decouples the clothing stats from your character's appearance, allowing you to choose a different appearance from the appearance of your equipped clothing. Equipment overall can come in 5 different rarities ranging from common all the way up to legendary. The higher the rarity, the further its stats are improved. The game also features a crafting system, allowing you to craft and upgrade various equipment from blueprints you can purchase or find in the world. As you earn points to apply to the various categories within the skill tree, you'll end up constructing your own personal character build based around what types of weapons you like to use and how you overall prefer to engage in combat. Keep in mind, there are not enough of these points available in the game for you to max out all categories, so you will be forced to decide what skills are most important to you. One thing that stood out to me about the gameplay was that the game never really forces you to play in any specific way, or engage with any of its features. Some may see this as a negative of an RPG. I see it as leading to the game being more accessible to a wider audience. For example, I've played several RPGs where I must engage with the crafting system in order to stand a chance, but in Cyberpunk, I barely used it and my playthrough was just fine. At times, I switched between using range guns to melee weapons from primarily hacking, and the game never fell apart or resisted my efforts to change things up. While the game shines in its visuals and narrative, unfortunately combat is not included. Combat is mostly generic. Enemy AI isn't particularly clever, nor are the enemy encounter scenarios necessarily going to blow you away. This isn't to say that the combat is terrible, but more so mostly serviceable and not much you haven't seen before from other games. As far as navigating the world of Cyberpunk, the fastest method is via fast travel points, over 100 of them, which are scattered throughout the environment and will place you within arm's reach of just about anywhere you need to go. Vehicles are another option, and these can be either purchased, awarded to you from a job, stolen if parked, or hijacked from NPCs in the streets. The handling of vehicles, however, is all over the place. Some feel either way too stiff, or in most cases, feel like you're driving a feather in which the slightest turn left or right sends you careening off the side of the road. My preference was to stick to bikes, as I felt these had better balance, though still not ideal. In terms of stability, the game never crashed on me from start to finish. Although that's a positive sign, as are the many bugs resolved via the Edgerunners patch, I still managed to experience a variety of glitches, and this remains an area I would like CD Projekt Red to continue making improvements in. While these were not deal breakers, many of them confused me as to how they could continue to exist at this point. For example, owned vehicles can be called direct to your location, yet this experience is very inconsistent. Sometimes your vehicle drives right up next to you perfectly, other times it spawns and remains a short distance away, and other times it's just nowhere to be found. I also found NPCs to occasionally get stuck in their animations, for example upon death where they temporarily remain floating in the air, and in other instances NPCs walking the streets would suddenly end up in the air as well. Other aspects of the game present interesting content and concepts that I thought were not fully explored enough. For example, the content found in various shards located around the world that provide you with others' perspectives and experiences about life at Night City, or the underlying atmosphere of transhumanism present throughout the game, and how citizens live in a world in which body modification and integration with cyberware is viewed as a regularity of life, affecting nearly all of society from law enforcement to employment, and even to a further division between the well-off and poor. Brain dances, which are pieces of tech that allow you to play back another person's recorded experience, including their emotions and physical sensations, were an awesome crime scene investigation-like interactive experience in Cyberpunk. However, even here, these only appear in the game about a dozen times, with less than a handful occurring during main jobs. In summary, while Cyberpunk's gameplay didn't rock me out of my seat, I didn't have a bad time with it either. I enjoyed my time building out my character via the various perks offered via the skill tree, as well as driving around the streets of Night City jamming the game's amazing soundtrack via its various radio stations. Its glitches would break my immersion at times though, and there were several conversations surrounding its lore that I would have liked to see explored further. Overall, I found the gameplay to be enjoyable enough, albeit not its strongest point. As I wrapped up Cyberpunk 2077, completing its multiple endings and watching the credits roll, I honestly wanted the game to continue. I didn't want it to end just yet. Beyond the central narrative, I felt there was so much more to say and explore, so many other stories to delve into. I'm curious to see where CD Projekt Red takes the IP from this point forward, both with the upcoming Phantom Liberty DLC and further installments in the franchise. If you own a current gen console or PC and haven't given Cyberpunk a shot by now, I'd recommend you do. Well, thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe to the channel to get more content, and let me know in the comment section what your thoughts were on Cyberpunk 2077. That's all I have for now. Till next time.